are talking Wyrmwood Apocalypse. This is the sequel to the 2014 movie Wyrmwood Road of the Dead. And this is a kind of post-apocalyptic zombie action film from Australia. Now, this movie picks up straight after the first film, so I will say that if you haven't seen the original movie, you may be a little lost about what's actually kind of going on. So it doesn't really give you much of a kind of a catch-up. I suppose it all makes sense to a degree as you kind of go on, but it is definitely worth seeing the first film prior to this one. It's a hyper-violent, stylistically directed movie, very much like the first one. Think kind of like the prime days of Sam Raimi. You'll kind of get a flavour here, where we have this society, this post-apocalyptic society, where there is this zombie virus. The zombies are a little different here. They're kind of a bit more unpredictable in some ways. They also kind of breathe out this sort of vapour which can be used as fuel. People kind of harness this to fuel vehicles and kind of machinery and things like that. And then we have this faction which seems to be somewhat kind of militaristic, and they seem to be doing experiments with live humans to try and find a cure. Now that's at least what our kind of good guys think when they are delivering kind of humans to this kind of this laboratory, which they assume they have altruistic intentions, but things may not be as they seem. And we also have our kind of survivors from the original movie, including this kind of hybrid woman who is part zombie, kind of part human, and has the ability to mentally control zombies and things like this. What will happen? You have to watch the movie and find out. That's somewhat of a vague synopsis there, but obviously I don't want to spoil the original movie as well as this one. Now, the original zombie movie Wyrmwood Road of the Dead, I actually gave an 8 out of 10. For those of you who say I don't like to give high marks and things like that, I gave that one an 8 out of 10, so I enjoyed it quite a bit. And this movie certainly feels like a natural continuation from that movie. So what can I say in the positive column on this one? So again, if you're a fan of the first movie, that kind of high energy kinetic camera work is present in this one as well. Again, I'll refer to Sam Raimi as clearly a big influence here, where the camera actually kind of feels part of the action. You find it's kind of following our survivors and zombies alike, smashing through windows and being very kind of like never in one place for very long. So it has this kind of like this high energy stylized kind of feel to it. The movie never takes itself kind of super seriously. It's obviously somewhat kind of tongue-in-cheek, but it has this kind of very kind of frantic pace to it that it never really slows down with this movie. Again, very much kind of like the first one. The zombie makeup is fantastic. You have all these kind of weird and kind of wonderful kind of characters that you're introduced to. Our main character, this one, is actually a brother of a character from the original movie, so it kind of switches it up. A likeable kind of leading man, I have to say. But we also get, I think, a little bit more kind of behind our bad guys in this one as well. We get a little bit more about what's kind of going on in their kind of motivations and their kind of organisation and what they're actually kind of doing, to be honest. It's super gory. Obviously there's a lot of time here spent on kind of practical effects, exploding heads, loads of kind of gallons of blood, literally gallons and gallons of blood, or fake blood, thrown around in the making of this movie. And it's very, very violent. So those of you who are like a kind of like tongue-in-cheek kind of splatter fest, I think you'll be kind of intrigued with this one. It is kind of an action film as well, so we do get these kind of like these action sequences, fight sequences, car chases. I don't think it's quite as kind of science fiction feeling as the original movie. It kind of feels a little bit more like somewhat more of a traditional zombie film, but that always had that kind of Mad Max comparison, the first movie. Less so in this one, I've got to say. What doesn't work, I think a couple of the problems here is that it starts off so kind of like, if you haven't seen the original, and I have, and I still didn't really kind of follow what was going on first of all, because that was a 2014 movie. It's 2022 now. It's kind of like, this is not exactly some mainstream film. So I couldn't really remember, to be honest, what had happened. So the movie doesn't do a good enough job here of bringing in new viewers, and also even viewers who have seen the original, and kind of reminding them about kind of what the status quo is and stuff, because it kind of just throws you in straight at the deep end, I think, without really kind of qualifying, you know, who's watching it really, to be honest. So it's a little bit kind of hard to kind of get to grips with what you're actually watching and who these kind of characters are, first of all. So yeah, it could have done a better job there, I will say. If you're a fan of the original characters from the first movie, you may be a little bit disappointed because they kind of are relegated to supporting characters in this one, and instead focuses on characters, either new characters or supporting characters from the original, who are now elevated to kind of like the main sort of characters. So it seems a little bit, you know, disappointing if you're wanting to see that kind of continued story. I mean, they are in it, but they are supporting roles, and to be honest with you, we don't really see them until the second half of the movie. You get a little bit at the very beginning, but, you know, we don't see our kind of, I suppose, our centerpiece kind of characters until into the second half of the movie. I don't think it's quite as narratively interesting as the first one. It feels a little bit more generic, I have to say. Still a fun film, still a kind of an interesting, you know, kind of story, but a little bit kind of generic. And I do have still some kind of the same concerns. Our bad guy, this kind of scientist guy, it's just a little bit too over the top. When you compare him to everyone else, he's just a little bit too kind of manic, and although everyone is somewhat tongue-in-cheek, he's just one notch above everyone else to me. So I do think this is still an enjoyable movie. I don't think it's as strong as the first movie, to be honest with you, but I will still give it a 7 out of 10. I do think this is still a substantially above average kind of action kind of horror movie. It may be a little bit too silly for some, a little bit kind of too tongue-in-cheek maybe for others, but overall I still think it's a pretty solid film. Not quite as strong as the first movie, but still a good time for a gory zombie film with some original ideas. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.